Years ago, in August, I served as the chief engineer for a design build company, often away for work. One week, I had an early morning flight from Hartsfield, Jackson, forcing me to wake up at 4 a.m. to avoid Atlanta traffic. After a challenging project in Baton Rouge consumed Tuesday and Wednesday, I was en route to New Orleans to meet colleagues. Mary Jo Pelly, a construction manager I'd mentored in Atlanta, was preparing for maternity leave. To support her replacement, I kept close tabs on her project. Unbeknownst to me, this vigilance would lead to my revenge and eventual healing. Mary Jo exhibited her usual level of organization. Following dinner with Mary Jo and her husband Azzy on Wednesday, we convened a planning meeting the next morning. I then flew from Louis Armstrong Airport, battled Atlanta traffic, and arrived at my office by 1:45 p.m. I briefed my boss, Mr. Strickland, about the Baton Rouge project, suggesting increased supervision, and updated him on Mary Jo's progress in New Orleans. He concurred with my recommendations and instructed me to take the rest of the day off. After submitting my expense report, I was just about to text Reagan that I would be home early when Ethan Gardner, a close friend since third grade and colleague for 6 years, entered my office and closed the door. "Hi, Trent. How was your journey? It was lengthy but fruitful. Etherly should now manage Baton Rouge more effectively, but I'm drained. Mr. Strickland told me to take a day off, so I'm leaving." Ethan turned grim and chuckled, assuring me he hadn't fired me. Instead, Mr. S granted me a day off as recompense for the additional time I spent tidying up in Baton Rouge. I was planning to buy flowers and wine, intending to be in high spirits when Reagan arrived home. I could postpone anything work-related. Ethan intervened abruptly. "Trent, this has nothing to do with work. It's about Reagan." What was wrong with Reagan? A shiver of dread ran through me. Why hadn't anyone contacted me if something had happened? Ethan hesitated before disclosing. "Trent, she's been unfaithful while you've been away." Rage surged within me as I gazed at Ethan, my longtime friend. Reagan had admitted to being free-spirited during college, but she had pledged to settle down when we became serious, even seeking therapy for her transition. I trusted her. "Ethan, this isn't a joke. Leave if it is, and consider our friendship before returning." Ethan appeared distressed. "Yes, Trent, I'm serious. Jake Campbell learned from Clay that Reagan had been unfaithful. Clay's companion was entangled with her, yet she was not exclusive, a fact Clay discovered. Consequently, he chose to be open about it. Hearing Ethan confirm my deepest suspicions about Reagan left me devastated. Despite knowing it wasn't accurate, I felt enraged towards Ethan for falling for such a senseless prank. My anger quickly shifted towards those propagating the lie and the fool who initiated it. I was also furious with Ethan, my long-standing friend, for assisting in spreading this falsehood. Ethan, standing at 6 feet tall and roughly 150 pounds, had always been a scrawny, bookish lad. He knew I was capable of carrying out my threat. He lowered his gaze, shook his head, then looked up with sorrow in his eyes. "Trent, I'm sorry. We've been friends for a long time, and I don't want to hurt you, but if I hadn't told you, you would have suffered more. You're aware of your hot temper, and I've soothed you numerous times in high school to prevent trouble. I wouldn't share this unless I truly believed it. Here's an investigator's name my cousin hired when he suspected his wife of infidelity. If she proves Reagan did something wrong, know it's the truth." I tried to compose myself. Ethan was correct. We've been best friends since his family settled next door as kids. He was the composed intellectual who kept us out of trouble, while I was the flamboyant athlete who bailed us out. We studied at different universities, but I recommended him for a job at my company, and we've collaborated for 6 years. Although I initially doubted Ethan's tale, I understood he must have believed it and was safeguarding me. Taking a slow breath, I asked, "Your cousin's wife, wasn't she?" "Yes, Miss Haya investigated her," Ethan replied grimly. "He divorced her, but still meets her twice weekly for the children. He cherishes his children and would go to any lengths to safeguard them. Likely, he'd have caused harm to the woman and faced capital punishment without his kids. I apologize, friend." Upon hearing the phone, Ethan departed my office, shutting the door in its wake. Alone, I pondered his allegations and his remarks about his cousin. I felt sympathetic towards him, mostly for the children. Reagan and I were contemplating growing our family, wishing for a son and a daughter. I composed myself before tidying up and heading home. As I drove, I attempted to push Ethan's words aside, but the thought he planted continued to grow as I merged onto the highway. No, I didn't trust it, not for an instant. In truth, I refused to trust it. The entire situation seemed absurd, yet it was grave. As I traveled north on I-75, I weighed telling Reagan about it, but decided against it. There was no need to upset her over such falsehoods, even if they stemmed from Ethan. Following a brief stop at the supermarket, I strolled into the kitchen where Reagan embraced me. "You're back early," she noted, prior to our kissing. Catching up on our lost moments since Tuesday morning, she mentioned. "I stayed late the past 2 nights to depart early today and welcome you home." "Oh, how much I missed you, Trent," she expressed, which made me smile, thinking about her beauty and humor, disregarding the unfounded rumors Ethan's friend had spread. I trusted Reagan loved me and wouldn't be unfaithful. By Friday morning, Ethan's accusations were still preying on my mind. I needed to clear this up with Ethan to save our friendship. As I drove to work, I made a decision to contact the private investigator Ethan referred to, not to prove Reagan was unfaithful, but to prove she wasn't. I contacted Donna Hightower's office and scheduled an appointment for Monday afternoon. Arriving early, I stepped into her office at 10 minutes to 2. Prior to marrying Reagan, I maintained a substantial investment account under my own name, enabling me to consult an investigator without her knowledge. At the age of 2, I was ushered into a meeting room where a tall, attractive black woman in black pants, white blouse, and red scarf introduced herself. "Good day, Mr. Rowe. I'm Donna Hightower. How can we assist you?" Her firm handshake and discerning gaze hinted at her acumen and experience. "Greetings, Miss Hightower. I express my gratitude for your prompt meeting. My issue is straightforward. I travel frequently, and there are whispers that my wife is unfaithful. I request your help in disproving this rumor." She probed with astute questions about the allegation and Reagan, and I provided her with all relevant information regarding their carnal history before and during our union. I felt crestfallen when she put down her pen and stated, "Thank you for that information, Mr. Rowe. Based on your provided details, you hold a bachelor's and master's degree in engineering from Georgia Tech. My question pertains to your understanding of the principles underlying our legal system, specifically the concept of burden of proof. I must confess, this wasn't something I anticipated. While I have taken an introductory philosophy course during my undergraduate studies and served as a witness in a few court cases at my firm, I am not an expert on the subject." She acknowledged with a nod. "You requested that I establish your wife was not having an affair. That's a tricky proposition indeed. For example, one can demonstrate a wine glass wasn't broken by showing it's still intact. However, proving someone didn't do something is more challenging. I can validate my absence from robbing a bank yesterday using an alibi, but establishing that I didn't commit a crime last week, last year, or a decade ago becomes nearly impossible without thorough documentation. In your situation, we can monitor your wife over a certain time frame to see if she's been unfaithful, but we can't confirm she hasn't had an affair prior to our observation. Proving a negative isn't feasible here." I conceded, acknowledging her argument. If we keep tabs on her and discover no signs, we can infer her actions. We may uncover previous behaviors if they exist, but we'll never be able to definitively say she never had an affair. If this approach suits you, Mr. Rowe, we'd be glad to handle your case. If not, I wish you luck in finding someone who can fulfill your request. Comprehending her argument, I retained Hightower's private investigation service. I spent a few more hours with one of their investigators, answering questions, providing personal details, and discussing the right circumstances. She noted that I had been working at the Atlanta office all week. That Saturday night after Reagan went to bed, the basement circuit breaker failed. On Sunday afternoon, I realized the house felt warmer upon returning from church and a lunch with new acquaintances. Reagan expressed discomfort, and I suggested checking the circuit breaker. After flipping some switches without success, I decided to call our HVAC service. However, I hung up after 2 minutes in their automated system. Then I dialed the number Donahue had provided. "This is Trent Rowe. Our AC is not working. Can someone come over tomorrow at 10 a.m.?" I asked. "Perfect, thank you," was my response. Reagan overheard and decided we would sleep in the guest room due to the heat upstairs, likening it to a hotel stay. Her comment eased my mind more than it had since Ethan made the absurd allegation. On Monday morning, Reagan requested me to strip the bed and wash the sheets. 10 a.m. I worked from home and welcomed the HVAC subcontractor from High Hours Private Investigative Service. He commenced work upon my turning on the lights. An hour passed before he finished his task. These motion-activated cameras, positioned strategically, remain active for 5 minutes after motion ceases, offering a wide-angle view without drawing attention. Sufficient for legal purposes, but not cinematic, there are 3 in your bedroom, 1 in each room, and 1 on the bathroom door to ensure thorough coverage. I settled the installation fee and 2 weeks' rental, expressed my gratitude, and returned to work. Upon returning home, I noticed a chill in the house. "Reagan, it appears a hotel job in Orlando must be added to this week's itinerary. Initially, I was scheduled to be in Tampa on Tuesday night, but now I will also visit Orlando. Loretta has organized a late flight from Orlando on Friday. I shall attempt an earlier departure, though it seems unlikely." "I apologize profusely," Reagan said, "but let us make time for each other despite the circumstances." She smiled, grabbed my hand, and guided me to the living room couch. "I love you, Trent." "You too, Reagan," I responded sincerely. I grinned, certain that our marriage was sound, notwithstanding some unfounded allegations. The Tampa meetings progressed smoothly, while the Orlando follow-up was manageable. Normally, I handle these remotely, but being present kept our management team attentive. I spent part of my time assessing construction quality and bringing concerns to the assistant project manager's attention. He was young, but showed potential, and I felt he would soon be prepared for greater responsibilities. I could have left on Thursday afternoon, but chose not to. Reagan wasn't expecting me until Friday night, and I wanted to provide Miss Hightower every extra moment to supervise Reagan, yet I had faith she wouldn't betray me. I worked in my hotel room till noon, and later, I visited a well-known Orlando gun range. I rented a couple of firearms and allowed tourists to enjoy the automatic weapons instead. Last Friday, I labored at our construction site before departing for the airport. The congestion on I-285 and I-75 was intense, but I eventually found my exit. My heart soared upon entering the house as Reagan rushed to embrace me, sensing my tension. She offered a beer, which we shared on the couch before ascending to bed. On Saturday, Reagan exercised at the gym while I tended to our yard. After enjoying a drink and watching the Braves match, I scanned my personal email. No missive from the investigator was found. I rechecked on Sunday during Reagan's absence from home. This time, there was a message. With apprehension, I opened it, whispering, "Please, Lord, let this be an update. Dear Mr. Rowe, your order will be prepared on Monday at 11 a.m. Kindly contact our office to schedule delivery. Larson Tool Works." Eased by the news, I discarded the message. Reagan seemed concerned when she returned home and avoided my affectionate greetings. "I'm not feeling well," I admitted. She didn't want me to fall ill. She hugged me before I lay down while she prepared dinner. I stroked her back and leaned against her head, but I felt uneasy and didn't eat on Sunday night, getting up early on Monday instead. The scent in her hair had changed, which made me doubtful. I tried to explain it away as a sample of perfume. On Monday morning, I confirmed my appointment with Miss Hightower and arrived at her office around 11 a.m. She welcomed me and motioned for me to sit down. "Sadly, Mr. Rowe, our investigation finished earlier than expected, and I regret to inform you that the news is grim." The file she pushed toward me shattered my world as I flipped through the photos. There she was in our bedroom with a man, while another picture showed the same scene. However, the man in this picture didn't resemble the one in the first photo, and I exclaimed in disbelief. "Regrettably, it's all detailed in the report." She had been documented with 3 different men in 4 separate encounters from Saturday to the previous afternoon. In our second encounter, it was at a private residence that left me astounded. Her expression was grave, and she nodded. You see, Mrs. Rowe had gone shopping the day before our meeting, which was her second rendezvous with a lover. On Sunday, she merely visited the grocery store. If she didn't use cash, you could verify this by checking receipts or credit card statements. I reminded you that she was at the gym on Saturday, still struggling to accept it. However, Miss Hightower shook her head. I apologize, Mr. Rowe. From the hotel exit photograph with lover number 2, it wasn't a genuine gym she visited. How could this be? I asked, rage now dominating my disbelief. In just 1 week, she had been with 3 different men, and you were taking care of her. Miss Hightower put up a hand. I am not a psychiatrist, Mr. Rowe, merely an astute investigator. Your wife might have hyperphysical engaging disorder, often referred to as nymphomania. She has taken considerable measures to conceal her actions from you. Flowers, I sighed, their scent still in her hair. She took a shower today, possibly due to meeting him the day before. Yet, it could have been merely washing her hair or applying some product. She's particular about her appearance and swaps bed sheets between partners. Previous spouses have discovered stains or odors unknowingly. In our bed, however, I started remembering she had replaced the guest bed sheets not too long ago. Indeed, during 2 of the nights you were away, she was with someone in your bedroom. Don't refer to them as lovers. They are cheating, adulterous fools. She nodded, at least one affirmatively, yes. We don't know the identity of the first one, and the third isn't married, but the second appears to be her regular partner. He is married, thus also an adulterer. We recognized him as Noah War, 32, your wife's supervisor at her company. I sighed in exasperation upon finding his picture in the folder, my hands tightening into fists. I was on the verge of confronting that matter. Noah War has recently taken over as your wife's manager. It's a vast firm with numerous branches, so he could be in a different department. I shook my head disapprovingly. In late spring, Alemb was promoted and Mr. War assumed management duties. Reagan has never uttered his name and labeled him as unsociable, yet he pointed him out to me when I picked her up from work. Miss Hale expressed disbelief with a shake of the head. It's unlikely he's sociable with the spouses of his mistresses. Mr. War possesses no previous offenses or active warrants, however, multiple unpaid parking tickets are to his name. Your wife encountered him at a bar on Wednesday night, drove him to your house for over an hour, then returned him afterwards. We traced his identity using DMV records and further confirmed it through web search. How naive, I sighed, trying to contain my rage. Miss Hale advised, stay calm, Mr. Rowe. We're not done yet. She rendezvoused with him at the hotel on Saturday and again yesterday at his residence. Based on tax records, his residence is shared with Mrs. Wolvers. A minor alteration in timing could have resulted in a near miss. Miss Hale mentioned twice. Her game is concluded, but she remains oblivious. Previously, I pursued any woman who displayed interest without success, until I encountered Reagan. In college, she was like others yet desired to settle with me. She expressed love for me, but now. Miss Hale patted my arm and glanced at Noah War's picture, stirring anger within me. Miss Hale held my arm tightly. Mr. Rowe, I apologize for your suffering. Avoid letting your pain drive you towards actions you'll regret. Revenge could devastate your life. You could end up in prison, lose your job, and everything you've worked for. I recall that the blame isn't on you, but her. She has hurt me, shattering dreams of children. I intend to make her feel every ounce of the emotional pain she caused, while maintaining control over my actions, not letting her actions ruin my future. Sighing, Hightower implored Rowe, be cautious, don't overstep. It's simpler than you might think to surpass the boundary. Hale suggested George C. Godwin as a divorce attorney for me. Spending 2 hours in Piedmont Park, I pondered my next moves, then met with him. Godwin, Hightower's younger uncle and an elderly black man, was short, sturdy, and cheerful, unlike his noble and reserved niece. He possessed extensive knowledge of family law and the Georgia legal system. We addressed each other informally and conversed before discussing my divorce. Upon viewing the photos, he whistled. So that's clear. What more do we need? I gave him a flash drive containing all the records Heo suggested. After reviewing it, he commended his niece's thoroughness. This woman really knows her business, Trent. Everything seems prepared. I'll compile it and inform you when we're ready to submit. Can you complete it by next Monday? Yes, but it will incur overtime costs. Please proceed, do it. Later, I divulged my strategy and an extra demand. His countenance remained stoic. Proceed with caution, Trent. Your anger is justified, yet tread lightly in legal matters. Appearance and demeanor are crucial in court. I feigned a smile, cognizant that there's no substantial river in the urban Atlanta setting. I arrived home late Monday, citing exhaustion due to a minor health issue. I steered clear of Reagan, feigning illness. After showering and brushing my teeth, I sought solace. Tuesday morning, I departed early without rousing her to board my flight to Charlotte. Thursday evening, I made an unwelcome phone call. Ethan, this is Trent. I owe you an apology. You were correct, and I was in the wrong. She deceived me. Ethan, like a brother, showed instant forgiveness and offered assistance. I stayed home late Friday, pretending to be drained. Saturday morning, I visited my parents' residence to lend a hand with their project. I wanted to reveal my predicament, but knew I had to postpone it. I phoned Reagan Saturday evening to inform her of my delayed return on Sunday afternoon. She seemed absent and not solitary during our call, suggesting she wasn't home alone. On a Sunday afternoon, I presumed Reagan was out with someone when Mr. Godwin texted me. I phoned him to verify everything was set up, and he did. Our lifelong friendship agreed to serve the papers on Monday at 11 a.m., as requested by me. I took leave from work, informing Reagan about some urgent business matters. I visited the office to finalize my plans. Twice she phoned, and I informed her the case was prolonged, implying I'd return home even later. I pledged to depart early on Monday and spend the evening with her. Her spirits lifted, and she expressed affection. I lied, considering the circumstances. I thought reincarnation must be challenging. She showed displeasure when I climbed into bed that night, which would be our last shared moment. After she left for work in the morning, I labeled everything I owned with vibrant painter's tape, designating them as community property or intended for donation. At 7:45, Ethan arrived, followed by the moving crew. Initially, I assisted them. Then Ethan assumed control while I gathered necessary items. All truck contents were transported to the warehouse. Reagan failed to notice my weapons had been relocated to my parents' residence on Saturday. Nearly finished and ready to depart, Amy, Reagan's neighbor and friend, spotted the truck and inquired if we were moving. I skillfully intercepted her before she saw anything. Hush, I said with a grin. I was planning to surprise Reagan with new furniture for our upcoming anniversary, 5 years away next week. I was discarding old furniture and clutter before its arrival tonight. Please do not disclose it to her until she informs you herself. She consented, smiling, and departed. By midday, the word would probably spread, so I was relieved it was already nearly 11. I generously tipped the movers, shook Ethan's hand, thanked him, and proceeded to the bank. At 9 a.m., I withdrew half of our funds as a cashier's check. Then I deposited it into a new account at a credit union. 10:45 a.m. I parked in an office building lot in Sandy Springs, then booted up my laptop. Having applied for a new credit card, I decided to close my existing one with no remaining balance. This process took longer than anticipated, causing me to feel the pressure of time, sweating as a result. By 10:57 a.m., it was completed. Simultaneously, I logged into our shared family email account, awaiting the scheduled text message. At 11 a.m., the process server informed me that Reagan was on her way. Shortly afterward, another message arrived, indicating she had reached the lobby, visibly nervous. I uploaded a pre-written email to the family account. Although tempted to send a more elaborate message from Reagan's work email, I adhered to advice against overstepping boundaries by Miss Hightower and her uncle. The email distributed to friends and family announced my filing for divorce, featuring 3 photos of Reagan and Noah. The images were slightly cropped and blurred to conceal specifics, but retained sufficient clarity to reveal the affair. However, it was not sent to Reagan or Noah. I pressed send, confirmed the delivery, and logged off. My phone rang at 11:03 a.m. It was Reagan. "What's this about a divorce, Trent? Why, I thought we were content. Did you find someone else?" I chuckled at her frenzy. "You thought we were content? I did too, until I discovered what you were up to. Check the back of the envelope my lawyer included in the package." I heard her cursing and shouting, promising love just as she had on our wedding day 5 years ago. "Oh dear," she shouted. "Trent, it's not what it seems. Let me explain." "No, Reagan, we're over. Here's the contact information for my attorney if you need anything." I ended the call as she continued shouting. She called back, but I sent it to voicemail. Her messages were filled with denials and falsehoods, which I discarded without listening. I immediately blocked her number after that. I phoned my father-in-law. Bob and I were not only in-laws, but also friends, so I didn't bother sending him a message. "Hi, Bob, this is Trent. It's regrettable to contact you during work hours, but the matter at hand is pressing and requires your immediate attention. Unfortunately, things have spiraled out of control." I could hear him swallowing. "What's new, Bob?" "With deep regret, I must inform you that due to Reagan's failure to uphold our marital commitments, we are terminating our marriage. Trent, I understand about your daughter, but circumstances have shifted. It's unfair to keep her past transgressions against her. Bob, I wouldn't do such a thing, but she has relapsed, and it's serious. Just 2 weeks ago, while I was away, she went off the rails. I have evidence like locations, dates, times, photos, and videos. It's been consuming me. I dislike discussing this over the phone, but you should be informed. I'm not making this decision lightly. I can no longer trust her. The legal proceedings were initiated this morning, and she's already been served. No, I can't believe it. She had promised me she was beyond this. She had promised us all. Bob, her promises weren't enough. If she had remained truthful, I would have loved her eternally, but now it's too late. The love I once felt for her has disappeared. I continue to feel concern for you and your spouse, which is why I'm communicating this openly. Bob showed profound remorse over his daughter's behavior. Our goodbye was tinged with regret in his tone. I subsequently attempted to reach Chessie, but only reached her voicemail. Assuming he had already contacted her, I left a brief message. It was 11:16 am at the time, and I moved forward with the part of my plan that filled me with uncertainty. If I followed through, I risked causing harm to an innocent person, but if I didn't, I might face greater harm myself. I donned sunglasses, a baseball cap, and a fake ID badge from a fictitious delivery company. Ethan was instructed to take calls between 11 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. under the alias Sunshine Process Serving. I popped a piece of gum in my mouth and entered the building. At the reception desk, I announced, "Hello, I'm TC Rowe from Sunshine Couriers and Process Serving. I have a special delivery for Mrs. Melissa Wallover." The guard looked displeased. "Such deliveries are handled at the receiving center." "No, the courts require a photo ID and signature. It's compulsory." "Keep it quiet, or there might be trouble, as I need to find her." "Hold on," the guard stated. "What do you require?" "I will identify and get her signature in the lobby, without any complications." He nodded consent. "Proceed upstairs, but remember you'll need a visitor pass. I'll hold your ID during that time." I complied, giving him my driver's license. Reluctantly, he took it and returned with the pass. "Return this badge to recover your license." Again, I nodded and made my way to the third floor. At the front desk, I had a similar exchange. The receptionist called Mrs. Wallover. Removing my disguise, I discarded the gum and placed my cap in my bag. Melissa Wallover, around late 20s or early 30s, with tan skin, dark brown hair, and dreamy brown eyes, looked concerned as the receptionist indicated her presence. She hesitated before approaching me. "Jan told you to have a document for me to sign?" she asked hesitantly. "No, Mrs. Wallover, I'm Trent J. Rowe," I replied. "You don't require a signature, but I have to pass this on to you as it pertains to you." "What is it?" you asked. Mrs. Wallover, I regret to inform you that your husband was unfaithful to my wife, I murmured, handing her a photograph of them in bed. The envelope holds evidence supporting this claim. Tears ran down her face. It must be a fake. Noah swore to me. It isn't fabricated. I hired a detective agency to look into my wife. They corroborated her infidelity. The contents of the envelope provide irrefutable, unaltered proof. I intend to present this in court. But he vowed, she whispered, crying. She leaned closer to me, and I offered comfort. He claimed the initial instance was a mistake and wouldn't occur again. Why? I can't answer that, Mrs. Wallover. This time it was intentional and occurred on multiple occasions. The envelope details 3 meetings within 5 days. She gripped my shirt, shaking her head. Despite her height of 5 feet 5 inches, she was shorter than me. She brushed away her tears and faced me. I'm heading out for lunch. If you wish, I can send him a photo. Mrs. Wallover, you are lovely, but vengeance isn't the solution. You must consider your conscience. Don't act impulsively or in a way that might contradict legal standards. She retreated. You're correct. I gave him another opportunity, but this is it. We'll go to court. I've enclosed the contact details for a private investigator and a lawyer who has been responsive to my case. He filed the documents this morning. She handed me an envelope, thanking me, then inquired, May I reach out to you for advice if needed? My number is included in the envelope. Following Donna Hightower's suggestion, I spent the subsequent days worrying at a lab in South Georgia while supervising a project. The fear of contracting a severe disease only fueled my anger towards Reagan. However, the lab assured me that I was STD-free. At week's end, I sighed in relief. Averted was that risk. Reagan persistently tried contacting me, leaving messages on my work voicemail and cell phone from various numbers. I promptly discarded them upon hearing her voice, yet she didn't seem to catch the signal. Upon returning to work on Friday morning, I encountered more messages and removed them one by one. Subsequently, I consulted my phone's manual to block her number permanently. Issue resolved. Deciding to visit my parents over the weekend, I discovered they too were receiving messages from Reagan. Consequently, I blocked her number there as well. My mother was particularly distressed, aware of our plans for children with Reagan. She urged me to reconsider the divorce, claiming Reagan's actions couldn't be that detrimental. I shook my head and displayed a trimmed photograph along with a date. Tears flowed down her face, but she comprehended eventually. She clung tightly to my father as I bid farewell and moved towards my temporary lodging. The following workday, Andy Smith burst into my office with dismal news. Trent was faced with an unexpected situation when Mary Jo Jopel's water broke before her maternity leave. We presumably should have offered prayers for MJ and sent a gift, while asking Andy to step in for her. However, Andy was displeased about having to wrap up his ongoing project prematurely, as Mr. Strickland considered him the best fit. With Andy looking anxious, a week away from completing his project, we suggested an alternative to Mr. Strickland to prevent any interruption. I offered to take over the New Orleans job instead of Andy, managing critical issues on other projects as necessary, including Baton Rouge. Later in the day, we learned that Mary Jo and her twins were doing fine. I journeyed to New Orleans, feeling more distant from Reagan and my past with each passing mile. By the time I reached the hotel, it was already late, and I slept for a few hours before heading to the job site. The morning was spent meeting subcontractors and examining plans. Events unfolded as anticipated, prompting me to depart early to visit Mary Jo at the hospital. Upon arrival, she informed me that she had already received the flowers I'd sent. Thus, I presented her with a token of gratitude and a certificate for her children in the neonatal intensive care unit. Although I couldn't physically see them, I observed them on a monitor while MJ and Az looked on affectionately. Despite my joy for their situation, the notion of never having my own kids left an ache. I redirected my attention to the project, treating it as top priority for the upcoming days. On Friday, I took the construction office staff out for drinks in the French Quarter. On Monday, George Godwin phoned to check on the divorce proceedings. He was grappling with difficulties in Atlanta due to multiple calls from Reagan trying to reach me, growing more frantic with each attempt. "Aren't you considering speaking with her?" he inquired. I responded with a sarcastic grin, hearing him chuckle. I thanked him and returned to my work. In the evening at my hotel, I received a text message from an unknown number. "Hi, Trent. My attorney submitted the necessary documents today, and Noah has been notified. Can we discuss this when you have some time? Thank you, Melissa W." Later in the day, I received your message back, and shortly after, my phone rang. "Hi, Trent. Thanks for taking my call." "I'm grateful that you called, Melissa. How are you coping?" she replied with hesitation. Changing the subject, I asked, "And how about you?" She then expressed gratitude for exposing Noah's actions and preventing her from making a hasty decision. She could have taken advantage of my situation, but she didn't. She appreciated it. She acknowledged that things were tough, but vowed to get through this. I acknowledged her determination and added that it wouldn't have been fair for either of us. "I'm feeling better, at least somewhat, now that I'm away from her. I'm relieved to hear about your resolve as well." I pondered suggesting she reach out if she needed to talk, yet hesitated. Primarily her issue, although I was a casualty too. I held my tongue since I had future plans for him. We bid each other farewell and good luck. Work in New Orleans was thriving, but I also oversaw the Baton Rouge project and offered advice on others. Feeling like I was waist deep in a swamp filled with alligators, George phoned a few weeks later with news. "Trent, Mrs. Rowe's lawyer is requesting a consultation. You'll need to meet her in Atlanta for several sessions. What should I do?" Their tactics angered me, but George had warned me. We were hiding evidence of her infidelity. Should we bring it up now? It would have to be given to her lawyer, but Judge Johnson might rescind the request. Inform him first. A week later, Reagan's petition for counseling was rejected, though Judge Johnson advised she seek help for her addiction to carnal desires. That issue was resolved. For several months, while Reagan and her lawyer battled George in court, I remained inconspicuous, fearing she might hire someone to find me. I had George modify my will and life insurance to prevent Reagan from receiving any money if anything happened to me. Once the Azzies twins were discharged from the hospital, I visited them for dinner and babysat one night. The twins crying after their parents left made me hope that if I ever had children, I would prefer having only one at a time. Melissa Warr contacted me repeatedly, seeking encouragement and support. I made sure not to take any actions that could be interpreted as romantic or adulterous. Once things got better for Melissa, her messages ceased. As Mary Jo's maternity leave was coming to an end, a realtor found me a house using funds set aside prior to Reagan's involvement. I purchased a house in Dunwoody a few weeks before MJ returned. After spending nearly 3 months in extended stay housing, I wanted a comfortable home and to retrieve my belongings from storage. Mary Jo resumed work, however. There were no fresh projects in New Orleans, so she intended to stay at home temporarily. This wasn't unexpected since Aziz had secured a position at Loyola. I was asked by MJ to think about her for potential future projects in New Orleans, and I consented. Additionally, my relocation to Atlanta meant parting ways with my informal godchildren, the children of MJ and Aziz, whom I often looked after. I would miss witnessing their growth, and it served as a reminder of being childless due to Reagan. Moreover, Reagan was prolonging the divorce, but George Godwin confirmed that Judge Johnson was also becoming impatient when the end was near. After settling into my new residence, I familiarized myself with a few new neighbors, including a kind divorced woman named Noel. I appreciated her brownies but declined her dinner invitation, explaining that I couldn't date until my divorce was final. Ethan, who didn't grasp the Georgia court system, asked when I would start dating again. "After the judge finalizes my divorce, I don't want anything affecting the settlement with Reagan. So, how's that ex of mine doing?" he inquired. "I don't know or care about her response. You still owe her big time," was his reminder. I acknowledged this, understanding it would be paid off when necessary. Judge Johnson became frustrated with Reagan's delays and scheduled a final hearing for early April. Upon arrival, I saw Reagan approaching. "Trent, This wasn't what we agreed upon. I knew Reagan, but you couldn't keep your promises. You were away too often. You were aware of how frequently I would be gone when you decided to marry me. I made up for it each time, except for the last trip where you cheated with your boss and others after my return. She looked angrier than ever, tears streaming down her face, but I had certain needs. Several people were watching us. We'd discussed these issues before marriage. You vowed your wandering days would end, yet you failed. Get over it and move forward. If you can't find another therapist. She winced at my statement as a larger audience looked on. I departed, noticing Trent moving towards her. She called out to Trent, but I proceeded with George into the courtroom. The judge required our presence for the last signing to avoid any more holdups. Reagan erupted in anger, but the judge restrained her and announced his verdict. The gavel struck, marking the end of our 5-year union. I thanked George and left. Reagan pleaded and shouted, yet I disregarded her. The following day, George applied for a restraining order, which Judge Johnson granted. With this order in place, Reagan was forbidden from approaching me. If she defied it, a short jail term might benefit her, but she managed to fade from my existence. Over the next weekend, I resumed dating, setting up a long-delayed date with Noel. She was pleasant, though we shared little beyond an extended dry spell. When I dropped her off, she asked me in, and soon enough, we were in her bedroom. Upon the second occasion, we both smiled, and Noel moved closer to me. She proposed repeating the encounter if I desired, indicating she wasn't seeking a long-term commitment. I acknowledged her and departed. Subsequently, my relationship with Noel remained casual, but it didn't continue beyond that. I dated another woman during the subsequent weekend, followed by another in Birmingham on a business trip. After every date, I felt desolate, recognizing I wasn't any closer to finding the right partner. I yearned for a friend, lover, and lifelong partner to establish a family with. Over the next 2 months, I started questioning whether I'd ever experience lasting contentment. Nonetheless, temporary happiness was abundant and pleasurable. During the Independence Day weekend, I visited my parents and witnessed my sister, her husband, and their 4 children. My mother, understanding me better than I understood myself, said, "You won't provide your father and me grandchildren if you don't alter something." "I know, Mom. I purchased a house, and I'm making repairs to it." "Trent, a house isn't a home yet. A man needs to find a good woman. It seems I will eventually. You worry, Mom, but I assure you I'll find her with some time." Her statement about time made me ponder. One late July evening, I got a text from Melissa Woer. "Hi, Trent, this is Melissa Woer. Fancy a chat when it suits you." It was surprising to hear from her after so long. After finishing cleaning the paint sprayer, I replied asking her to call whenever convenient. A few minutes later, she called. "Hey, Trent, thanks for getting back to me." "Not a problem at all, Melissa. How have you been? We haven't spoken in a while, and I wasn't sure if you'd want to following everything that transpired." She joked, "Unless you were referring to my ex-husband, your now former one," she added. "Regarding the matter between them and their predicament, I don't impute blame to you, thus our conversation continues unhindered. Let me assure you, I had no role in it. I never thought you were involved either, so what's new? Well, things turned out differently than anticipated, but now I'm liberated. I've even reclaimed my birth name, Ortiz. I wish to express my gratitude for your assistance. You exposed his actions, offered free evidence, and provided guidance. Although I sought advice from another lawyer, you were instrumental in my case, and I appreciate it greatly. Thank you. There's no need to dwell on it further. It was a challenging time, Trent. You served as my beacon when I was at my lowest ebb. Though we are not familiar with each other, I admire the qualities I've observed in you so far. Thus, I am taking a risk and proposing something unprecedented. Would you care to dine with me? Our dinner was pleasant, but I spent the evening reflecting on her sweetness and beauty and wondering about the foolishness of her ex-husband. Reagan was as captivating as ever, yet concealed a treacherous nature that disillusioned me. To me, she dropped from an 11 to a negative figure. She chuckled and insinuated, almost as enamored as I was. I smiled in agreement. It's invigorating to concentrate when there's someone so appealing to concentrate on. She blushed and concealed her mouth. "Would you like to leave this place and perhaps visit your home later?" she suggested coyly. "Yes, take me home or somewhere now," she pleaded. "I need it and can't delay anymore." A short while later, as we entered her neighborhood, she retrieved her phone from her bag. "Pull into the garage," she instructed, the doors automatically opening. That night, we remained in bed except for brief water and bathroom breaks. Fortunately, it was Saturday, so I didn't have work because I felt I could remain with her indefinitely. After our morning rendezvous, she drifted off to sleep, and I breathed a sigh of relief, making my way to the bathroom. The morning sunshine filtered through the open curtains, casting my first genuine glance at her bedroom. My clothes were spread haphazardly, causing me to smile. The double bed, a reminder of the previous night, and her mound of pillows now lay on the floor. The TV was placed beside a chair for viewing from bed. What struck me was Melissa's dresser, adorned with photographs. I took a peek at them, one causing me to pause and pick it up. "Trent, what are you doing?" Melissa inquired from the bed. "Melissa, who is the girl in these images?" I replied, "That's my 3-year-old daughter, Ansley. She's incredibly important to me. You never mentioned her before." I was trying to shield her from the Noah drama. She was a contentious issue during our divorce, which is why it took so long. "I don't want you to meet her until we're certain about us." "Where is she now?" I managed to keep my voice calm. "She's with him this weekend." "Why, are you worried?" I admire Melissa, but this revelation was a shock. "Melissa, I'm not sure what to say. I genuinely like you, but if there's one person I dislike as much as my ex-wife, it's your ex-husband. I desire to have children and would like to play a role in your daughter's life, if our situation progresses. However, I wonder who else may attend her events. If I'm present, is it Noah?" She sighed, acknowledging the truth. "He's a dishonest, unfaithful man, yet he adores her." "That's right. Each time I encounter him will bring back memories of his betrayal in my previous marriage. I'd harbor resentment towards him, and Ansley might pick up on this tension. There's a chance she could develop resentment towards me, potentially damaging our relationship. Understandably, I believe it would cause unnecessary complications." She asked, "Are you saying we have no future?" Despite my hope for the opposite, yes, I don't foresee a future between us. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I had thought things were too good to be true. "Please, Trent, could you please leave?" She tapped her phone a few times and added, "The garage door will be open for you." She collapsed on the bed sobbing and pulled the blanket over herself. I gathered my belongings, dressing in the hallway as I departed, despising myself almost as much as him, her ex-husband. Although it was painful, I recognized it was the appropriate choice. Later in the day, I went to see my parents. I provided them with a concise account of what transpired, yet they sensed my distress was deeper than I acknowledged. My mother attempted to elicit more details, but I informed her that it was futile. She offered me a reassuring hug and insisted everything would be fine, but I found it challenging to trust her words. On Sunday, we gathered with my sister and her family for lunch following church. While we waited for a table, she drew me aside and compelled me to disclose everything. Having assisted me through past relationship setbacks, I shared my feelings, albeit omitting intimate details, which she likely inferred. She stated it wouldn't be easy, but you can persevere if you genuinely care for her. One date doesn't reveal much. More dates might uncover whether it's worth fighting for. Thank you, sister. You are right. One date doesn't encapsulate the entire story, but it provided enough insight to understand that it would be more agonizing if it faltered due to past issues. Give it a try. You won't know until you do. I gave an affirmative response and pondered the matter. We didn't revisit it, yet it lingered in my thoughts. Ethan, who knew me well, concurred with my musings, but after visiting a factory close to La Grange, I began to question if Ethan's success with women made his agreement beneficial. The subsequent weekend, Ethan arranged for us to meet 2 women. We enjoyed ourselves, and the prospect of dating didn't seem unattractive. During the divorce proceedings, Reagan sought to retain our house. I persuaded George to resist, compelling her to sell it since she couldn't afford the buyout without relinquishing other desired items. It was petty, but I believed my actions were warranted. George and Reagan's attorney maintained a friendly relationship, and George discovered that Reagan intended to purchase a condo in the future. A rumor surfaced that Reagan and Noah were planning to wed. I reached out to George as this development could impact my finances. George had contested that Reagan, being unfaithful, should not receive alimony, but the judge granted her a minimal monthly allowance for 5 years or until she remarried. If she truly remarried, I'll verify and halt alimony payments, George asserted. Indeed, it merely underlines some individuals never grow, I responded, taken aback by their persisting relationship, which solidified my resolve to sever ties with Melissa. No, George chuckled, that's what keeps me in practice. It made me ponder a choice I had initially contemplated during the divorce, but deemed impossible. Following news of their wedding, I reached out to Will Kleiner, an acquaintance from Reagan's firm. We go back to college and reconnected when I started dating Reagan. Will and I met for lunch, and I shared my predicament with him. That's awful, Trent, I sympathize. It appears War requested a transfer to another department. The pieces are falling into place now, they're dodging HR conflict. Do you have any guidelines on such matters? Yes. If they breach them, there could be serious repercussions for both parties and the firm as well. I dislike asking, but can you provide me a copy of that particular section from your employee manual? Yes. Keep it secret about the source. On the following Saturday, I had a date and encountered Will and Lori Kleiner at a Braves match. Will provided me with a flash drive, and subsequently, I visited George's house to discuss its contents. Regrettably, I informed Trent. Even if you manage to prove that Noah was involved with numerous women, state law does not permit you to file a lawsuit. The state of Georgia abolished alienation of affection in '79, therefore, one cannot sue a partner for enticing or distracting another, nor can one sue their firms. Frustratingly, I had hoped that financially penalizing the firm would lead to repercussions for Noah and Reagan. George smiled. Many potential plaintiffs have the same thoughts. You can only sue in extraordinary cases where the firm was aware and took no action. Even then, securing substantial amounts is difficult. Frustratingly, I repeated. He laughed. Don't lose hope. Let's address the spousal support issue first before exploring other possibilities. The forthcoming week, George submitted a motion demonstrating Reagan and Noah had acquired a marriage license, aiming to halt alimony payments. Reagan's attorney objected, but Judge Johnson aligned with our viewpoint, stopping the payments. When I raised the second matter, George advised me to exercise patience. Half a year later, I met with George for lunch. I proposed postponement due to newlyweds needing time to adapt. Noah may be cautious temporarily, but eventually he'll likely return to his previous behaviors. 2 weeks elapsed, and Donna Hightower and her investigator uncovered that Noah was already involved with a new subordinate. George compiled the data and provided it to a lawyer acquaintance. We prefer not to be linked to this, Trent. If we are, and Noah loses his job, Reagan could request alimony reinstatement. She won't hear it from me, and I believe Noah won't inform her. George chuckled, implying slyness. Cunning was his tone. His legal friend delivered the evidence to Noah's firm. You told me that Noah was forced out by security and wasn't expected to return. Reagan wept, asking why, but nobody explained. You replied, fool. If I continue like this, I might turn into a bitter old man, but it's a risk I'm prepared to take. I sent the package anonymously, and the following night I received a call. Trent, Melissa Ortiz shouted, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I had to tell you. Noah allegedly phoned last night, asserting he was let go due to downsizing and would seek a reduction in child support. I reached out to a friend at the firm and heard whispers about his dismissal. Today, an anonymous express package arrived, which sheds light on the situation and should help keep my spousal support unchanged when Noah files his petition. Trent, I suspect I know who to thank, so thank you. I laughed. If you spoke to the right person, they'd say you're welcome. In regards to the package, it appears some people never learn. Noah may narrate a sad tale to the judge, yet when my attorney presents the evidence, I hope the judge employs those very phrases against him. He recently remarried. One can't help but wonder if he began infidelity almost immediately this time. Melissa, let it be in the past. Just smile and savor life. You deserve it. We bid farewell, possibly for the last time. For the first time in a while, I felt liberated. I emerged victorious from the ordeal, inflicting as much suffering upon Reagan and Noah as they had inflicted upon me. Reagan is now in a more precarious financial situation, residing in an apartment instead of a luxurious house with a deceitful spouse who paid alimony and child support. I harbored no regrets. Contemplating what had occurred, I recognized that I no longer hurled insults at them. After receiving retribution, I no longer cared about them. This recognition brought a smile to my face, but it was fleeting. I found that despite everything, they still held sway over me. I forfeited an opportunity for joy with Melissa due to my past with Reagan and Noah. Despite dating and sleeping with numerous women, I found myself uncaring about any of them. Both Reagan and Noah were as present in my mind as Melissa. Only when I could gaze upon them and laugh without reservation would I truly be free. In that instant, I knew what action to take. I retrieved the phone, located Melissa's number from the day she received the package, and dialed her. "Hello, Melissa. This is Trent J. Rowe. May we speak? Trent, thank you once more for your kindness when it wasn't necessary. I am listening. A thought struck me tonight. If I haven't already missed my chance, I'd like to discuss it with you and explore the possibility of turning things around." There was a pause on the line, though her breath seemed audible, so I persisted. "Though I urged you to leave the past behind, I came to realize I had been trapped in mine as well. I want to apologize for that and ask if there's any opportunity to set things right." To my relief, Melissa wasn't involved with anyone else. To my astonishment, she consented to another opportunity for us. A week later, we embarked on our subsequent first date, with no rush intended, but things often moving at their own speed. She welcomed me into her home, and we enjoyed wine together on the couch, chatting until 11. Shortly after, I found myself carrying her upstairs. We spent the night in peaceful silence, eager for our relationship to succeed. Over the ensuing months, we faced challenges, but discovered that we were in agreement regarding the crucial matters, and the trivial issues became less significant. Following our second date, I grew fonder of her with each passing day, finally accepting that it was more than just a liking. Melissa felt the same way, and we began mapping out a future together. We tied the knot approximately a year after deciding to take another shot at our relationship. Ansley served as our flower girl, while Melissa and I declared, "I do," with sincerity. Since then, we have crossed paths with Noah on occasion, but things turned out differently from my initial concerns. The first time he sarcastically commented about sharing leftovers, but I silenced him with a quiet remark only he could hear. "Thank you for taking cheating Vixen Reagan off my burden. If you believe she'll stay loyal to you, you're more foolish than I assumed. Additionally, thank you for facilitating my ability to be with Melissa, the genuine woman you couldn't retain. I got the superior end of the bargain." He nearly choked and clenched his fists, realizing I could have humiliated him further. He addressed his young daughter, whispered something, kissed her, and bid goodnight to Melissa. Several months later, he informed her he was divorcing Reagan and realized my words were accurate. When he started to propose something, she stopped him. "Too bad you didn't figure it out sooner, Noah. Don't ever bring it up again." Since then, Noah hasn't spoken to me, but I see remorse in his eyes whenever we're together, and I always smile. Ansley is 6 now, spending time at Grandma and Grandpa Ortiz's house. I'm clutching Melissa's hand as she tightens her grip on mine. At the doctor's signal, Melissa delivers one more strong push. She eventually relaxes, and I plant a kiss on her forehead as the doctor and nurse attend to her. The midwife turns to us and says, "Mr. and Mrs. Rowe, congratulations. We have a stunning baby boy." In that instant, I understood the value of all our hardships. I wouldn't alter anything now.